Savanna Cummings, dietitian and certified diabetes care and education specialist with Vidant Health. And today we're going to talk about what do carbs have to do with it. And we're going to go through food label reading, look at beverages, and then build a meal at the end. So let's get started. Our video last week, we actually made pizzas with our pita bread. And so we're going to use this label to go through. When you take a look at the label, the first thing that jumps out usually is the largest print, which is the calories. But for our session today, carbs, what do carbs have to do with it? We're going to look at the carbs because remember, even if you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes, or if you're just looking to lose weight or at risk for diabetes, watching your carbohydrates overall will improve your health and stream your waistline. So let's take a look at the label. First, when you take a look at the carbohydrates, it's listed as total carbohydrates, 31 grams. But first we need to know in how much. So the label, we should always look first at the serving size. So the serving size says 1 loaf. Now this little small grams, 56 grams, that's the weight of the food. So that's not necessary to look at. We just want to look at what's the serving size for me. It says serving size 1 loaf. And the serving per container is 6, which means there are 6 loaves in this whole package, okay? So we're going to have 1 pita and 1 loaf go down, total carbohydrates, 31 grams. Now, this is a small meal. Small meal, 30 grams, and medium meal, 45, large meal, 60. So you'll hear me reference this throughout our session today, and when we build our meal, we'll build the meal with different amounts of carbohydrates. So back to our label. Most important, anytime you have carbohydrates, it's wonderful if you have dietary fiber present. So our goal per day, about 25 to 30 grams of dietary fiber per day, and so this 1 loaf has 4 grams, which is considered a good source of fiber. So when we look at our label overall, total carbohydrates, 31. Of that 31, 4 of it is fiber, and 2 of it is coming from sugar. And then now our label includes the added sugar. So sometimes like fruits and other items you'll find have natural sugar, but now it's giving you an idea of 2 grams of added sugar. So this product has a little bit of sugar in it, probably for preservation or just for a little flavor. So actually this sugar that's 2 grams is added sugar. Now, is this bad? Well, it's just for us to know. We need to know how much added sugar are in certain products so that we can discern between what is the natural sugar or what is the added sugar. So overall, our label for this, total carbohydrates, 31, small meal. And if we put cheese or tomato sauce or something like that, like a pizza on top, still 31 grams of carbohydrates. All right, next let's look at oats. So oats, also a good source of fiber, but this label is something that we can look in a little bit deeper. So the serving size, 1/2 cup, dry. So you could definitely take out your measure cup, and when you're serving it at home, doing a little research helps. So taking it, using your 1/2 cup measure for dry, and if you look, you couldn't make your oatmeal this way. You would need to take this into a pot, but this is about 1/2 cup, okay? So either in your dry measure cup, or you could use a little small cup that you have at home. So in our 1/2 cup, let's look at what we have and maybe even compare it to what size meal we have. So in 1/2 cup dry, remember the servings in the container, there are 30 1/2 cup servings in this entire container. So the serving size for 1 sitting is 1/2 cup dry. In that 1/2 cup dry, we look down at our carbohydrates, 27 grams. So remember, our small meal is about 30 grams, so this would be considered a small meal. Now if we mix this with water, still 30 grams, small meal. If we mix it with milk, you'd have to look at the milk that you choose. So maybe cow's milk or almond milk. You have to look at the carbohydrate in that product. It would add a little bit to it, but not a lot. So again, down to our fiber. Fiber is great for your heart. It helps keep you full. and it fights cholesterol. So the dietary fiber, 4 grams. Of that 4 grams, 2 grams is soluble fiber, which means it has fiber that goes in and helps fight the cholesterol. And then our total sugar, 1 gram, and added sugar, 0. So remember, when you're looking at your label, we have 2 bold prints here, total carbohydrate and protein. In the middle, all of this information is included in this one number. So if you really didn't want to look, you could just say, okay, serving size, half a cup, total carbohydrate, 27, small meal, mix it with water, ready to go. All right, now let's look at our beans. So we have 2 different options for beans, dried beans or canned beans. When you use canned beans, it's nice to rinse the starch off. That just helps reduce it, but these are just equally as good, okay? So let's look at our label of the canned beans. All right, the serving size says half a cup. Now, this serving in the container, 3.5. That means there are 3.5 half-cup servings in this entire can, okay? Or if I eat this entire can at one sitting, all the numbers on the label I have to multiply by 3.5, okay? Half a cup, again, that's our dry measure, half a cup. Total carbohydrates, 18 grams. Now, this would be considered like a snack, but we probably wouldn't have just half a cup of beans. We'd more likely have a whole cup. So 1 whole cup of beans, about 30 grams of carbohydrate. Again, small meal, 30 grams of carbohydrate. But look at the amount of fiber that's packed into beans. So dietary fiber, 6 grams. High source of fiber, and then look at our protein, 6 grams. So beans give you a balanced protein by giving you carbohydrate, fiber, and protein. All right, now let's look at our dried beans. Now the difference between the canned beans and the dried beans are the sodium. So if you're watching your sodium for your blood pressure or anything like that, you would look at that to kind of see the difference. But when we look at our beans, this label is super busy. There's a lot of information on it. But again, same concept. You could say, you know what, I know half a cup, about 15 for beans, a whole cup, 30 grams. Also, 1 whole cup is like your fist. So if you were going to just scoop them out, you could measure it with your fist or your measure cup. All right? So good source of protein and fiber in the things we've looked at so far. Now next, let's go over to our drinks. Now I'm the dietitian that will never take away your good food, but I will take away your sweet drink because I know that there are other alternatives. So what are the alternatives instead of a sugar drink? Well, there's water, that's free. There's also water with lemon, that's free. But when we look at our convenience drinks, one thing to start, so let's say that you drink a lot of sweet drinks. Let's start with the meal. So there's flavor at the meal with your food. So you don't really need flavor with your beverage. So start with saying, you know what, I'm not going to have any sweet drinks with my meal. I have flavor with my food. I'm going to have water with my meal. Helps with digestion, helps keep you full. And then you're saving your carbohydrates. You're really going to be surprised at how many carbohydrates and how much sugar is present in your convenience drinks, okay? So let's look a little bit further at our little graph. So this graph is showing you convenience drinks. So keep your eye here. Water, 0 teaspoons of sugar. This bar is the limit for women, and this bar is the limit for men. These little bars down here. Now let's go to the big bars and see what we're looking at. Mountain Dew, 20 ounces, 19 teaspoons of sugar. All right, lemonade, 20 ounces, 17 teaspoons of sugar. So I have a lot of people to tell me that they do a half and half tea. So if a regular sweet tea has 16 teaspoons of sugar, you can use your teaspoon at home to kind of measure. So in a half and half tea, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 teaspoons of sugar in a half and half tea. So if you do half unsweet and half regular, you're still getting 8 teaspoons. Now the dollar tea, or the dollar soda, you're looking at 14 teaspoons. So we're at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So this is the amount of sugar present in a 32-ounce tea or lemonade or something like that found over ice. So even if it's over ice, you're still getting the same amount of sugar. And if you maybe just sip the tea all day, remember that you're still getting this amount of sugar. So this many teaspoons, how does it equate to a meal? Let's take a look at our board. So a 20-ounce regular soda, tea, lemonade, you're looking at about 70 grams of carbohydrates in a 20-ounce. Do you see 70 anywhere here? So think about it. You're at an extra large meal and you haven't had your food. You're just getting the 70 grams of carbohydrate from straight sugar. So if we say, well, I like a little juice, this is the serving size for juice. This is 4 ounces of juice. And in 4 ounces of juice, 15 grams of carbohydrate. We should really use this only to treat low blood sugar. It would go down really quickly. You could drink this really quickly, whereas a snack that's 15 carb, half a pita bread, it would take you a while to chew compared to drinking this. So half of this pita bread is equivalent to the carbs in this little cup of juice. So think about your drinks. How do they compare to your meals? Sometimes the best thing to start with is, what am I drinking? Because it's an easy switch. We have water, we have flavored water, even some of your diet drinks, you have no sugar, but you have an artificial sweetener. But take a look at the label. Now you know how to read your label and you can find out exactly how many carbohydrates are in your drinks. But this in itself can help you decide, you know what? Even if it's your grandchildren or your family members, if you're not drinking sweet drinks, share this with your family, because even if you don't have diabetes, you really should not be drinking a sugar-sweetened beverage of any kind. It contributes to your weight, and when you eliminate them, you're eliminating the calories, and you'll automatically see weight loss. All right, so now we're going to take a little bit deep dive into building a meal. So let's look at our carb budget. Snacks, 15 grams. Small meal, 30 grams. Medium meal, 45. Large meal, 60. And if you're asking, which one should I try? Look at what you're already consuming and see how it compares to our budget. A lot of us will stick with, you know what, I'm going to stay with a medium meal, about 45 grams, and see how it compares to my other meals. But keeping carbohydrate intake consistently is super important. So if you would say, you know what, I'm going to eat the same amount of carbs at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I'm going to stick to my carb budget, you'll see an improvement in your weight and definitely in your blood sugar, because it's about how much you have at one time. So if we're thinking about building a meal, having a really small meal for breakfast and then a really large meal for dinner can make stress on your blood sugar. It can make you more hungry. It can interfere with your sleep. So let's keep our carbohydrate amount consistent when we're thinking about building this meal. So let's build our meal, and we're going to look at how we can do this without a measure cup. So if you're looking at your plate, you want to fill half of your plate with these non-starchy free vegetables. We've got bell pepper, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, kale, green onion, cabbage, collards, this is kohlrabi actually, radishes, tomatoes. So your tall salad would fit here. Your green beans would fit here. When you're thinking about building your plate, we want to start with, what do we have as a vegetable? If we didn't prepare this and all we had was this small piece of protein and a little bit of starch, we may be hungry. But look at how much more food you could have if you have a non-starchy vegetable present at the meal. And if you're thinking about measuring with a measure cup, you can also measure with your hands. So these are examples of just guesstimating your portion size. And so we're going to look at just the cup. 1 cup is like a fist. And so one fist or one handful would be about 1 cup. And if you're starting with carb counting, you may want to keep your starch portion to about 1 cup and then fill up half your plate with your vegetables. So I'm going to use our little food demo. So when you see a dietitian, a lot of times we use the food models to kind of help visualize it. So when we build our plate, we're going to start with our vegetables. Now these are just regular snap green beans. We're going to have 2 handfuls of green beans to fill half of our plate. Then for our starch portion, about 1 handful, whole grain, brown rice, really high in fiber, good for your heart. About 30 grams of carb for a whole cup, okay? And then our fish, high in omega-3s, low in fat, and that would give you no carbohydrates. So I'm going to review this again. We've got 2 handfuls or half of your plate with your green beans. And I'm sorry, when I was saying this, our 1 cup is actually 45 for our rice, okay? So your rice and your pasta, about 45 for a big handful or 1 cup measure, and then 0 for your fish. Now, let's say that we were vegetarian or plant-based eating, or we really wanted to start trying alternatives with protein. You could also do your tofu here. So this is a balanced meal, and if you think about it, this is a lot of food. It would keep you full and help control your blood sugar. So let's look at this meal. We've got 45 here with our brown rice. And so where does this equate in our carb budget? Medium meal. So when you have a vegetable present, it gives you bulk, it gives you fiber, it keeps you full. When you're trying to reduce your portion of your starch, you need something with it. You need a non-starchy vegetable. We could also put a salad here. So this could be a salad, it could be peppers and onions sauteed, Brussels sprouts roasted, broccoli roasted, half of your plate, your starch, and your protein. And again, we've got a medium meal with this portion right here. So overall, when you're trying to plan your meals, start with what you're drinking because it's an easy fix. Maybe you're having a lot of sugar-sweetened beverages, or you're just having them sometimes. This is super expensive. It's about $7.99 a gallon if you buy this from the convenience store at the point of sale price. Imagine if gas was $6.99 a gallon. You would be upset about it. We don't need this in our body. It doesn't give us energy. Sometimes it can make your blood sugar go so high that you feel sluggish. So start with eliminating any sugar-sweetened beverages. Try sparkling water, water with lemon, or take a look at some of your diet sodas that have 0 carbohydrates. When you're building your meal, think about having a non-starchy vegetable cooked. It helps to make a whole sheet pan or a big pot of beans so that you always have a non-starchy vegetable on hand to build your meal. And then you're limiting your starch portion, keeping a good look at your carb budget. So let's look at our carb budget and then we're going to close up. So our carb budget, snacks, 15 grams. This is about 6 crackers or 15 tortilla chips. That's what you're looking at with about 15 grams. Small meal, our pita bread, half a cup of your oatmeal or oats, 45 for your cup of rice, and then 60, maybe you want a little bit more rice with your meal. You've got a little bit here for your large meal. You could do 1 cup of rice, 45, or maybe a little bit more rice for 60, or if you're doing pasta, you may do a little bit of extra pasta than a cup, and you're looking somewhere in between your medium and large meal. I hope that this has helped you out. Remember, when you're carb counting, keep it consistent. Look at your labels. You can also find really quickly on Google or calorieking.com. You just type in real quick on the internet and look up any food. A label usually appears, and you don't have to even click through the website. You can usually see it right on Google, a label for most of your fresh foods. I hope this has helped you. Again, I'm Savannah, and we'll see you soon.